What's up guys, today I'm going to be showing you exactly how to replace your TPMS sensor, that is your tire pressure monitoring system sensor. The first thing we got to do, get these tires off. Now we need to get all the air out of this tire. In order to do that, I'm going to be using this valve core removal tool and I'm going to be removing the valve core. If you don't have access to that tool, all you got to do is push down on the valve. You can use anything. You can use a stick you find out in the yard, a screwdriver, steak knife, doesn't matter. Push down on that valve and just get all the air out of the tire. Now that all the air is out of this tire, we need to break the bead. I already went ahead and broke the bead. I'm not going to go into details on how I did that because I have a whole nother video on exactly how that's done. There's lots of different methods you can use, so just pick one that works the best for you. But once we get this bead broken, I'm going to take this tire and I'm going to push it down and I'm going to try to wedge something in there, and that'll just give us some room to actually get access to the sensor. So what I ended up doing is standing on this tire, pushing it down and then wedging two bores on either side of the sensor. That's just exposing the inside of the sensor. And in this case, there's a 12mm nut on the valve stem. I'm going to be removing that. Now that I got this nut removed, the sensor is free. You can see it just wiggling down in here. I'm just going to be pushing it out from the outside in, and it should come right out. Now that the old sensor's out, I'm going to be cleaning up this area. I have a mixture of just Dawn and water, just soap and water, where I'm going to be using that to clean up this area here. That way we get a nice good seal on it. I got my new sensor, and you have two sides of this thing. You got the side with all your part numbers and all the logos and everything on them, and then you have this side with all the epoxy on it. The epoxy side goes towards the inside of the wheel, and all of your logos and part numbers go on the outside. Now, if you look at the angle of this, it's going to be easier to install it backwards, and then I'm going to flip it around so that it's the right way once it's actually through the hole. Now our sensor is in here. You can see it's pushed up against this wheel, and our valve stem is actually through the hole. We have our little cap. We're going to be installing that. So now before you tighten down this nut fully, check with your manufacturer to see exactly what torque specs you need to tighten it down to. This is for a Honda Kona, and they are calling for 4 Newton meters, which equals around 35 inch-pounds. So I'm going to get that torque down to spec. Now I can go ahead and remove these boards, but as I'm removing them, I'm going to hold the tire upright because these boards will shed a little bit. I'll get little splinters in there. I want to keep this seal as nice and clean as possible. I'll take my hand and just kind of run it in there and make sure that there's no debris inside where the tire is going to mate with the rim. So I'm ready to air up the tire. I took the valve core out. If you did the same, make sure you put that back in, and then I'm going to start airing up the tire. If I'm lucky, that's going to create a seal, and as I'm airing it up, it'll pop back onto the bead by itself. But if it doesn't, there's a few things we can try. We can take the tire, and as we're putting air into it, we can bounce it and spin it at the same time. And what that's going to do is push that sidewall out, hopefully creating the seal, popping it back onto the bead. If that doesn't work, you can take a ratchet strap, put it around the circumference, start ratcheting it down and applying air to it. That'll help push that sidewall, creating that seal, popping it on. When installing this valve core, you want the threads at the top. This end's going to get inserted first, and then this nice little flat spot up here, that's what the tool actually grabs onto. Next, we'll make sure that we have this thing inflated properly. You can usually find what your tires need to be inflated to on the inside of your door. And I'm going to go ahead and spray down this valve stem, and I'm also going to spray this bead with that soap and water, and I'm going to look for bubbles. If I see bubbles, I know I have a leak, and I can get that addressed before I put this tire back on the vehicle. Now, I just have to get this onto this vehicle. Now, what I ended up doing is putting this TPMS sensor onto a whole new set of wheels and tires. So originally, this just had your original valve stem. This sensor weighs a little bit more, so I will have to get these tires balanced. Now, if you're just replacing a sensor and you don't move that wheel at all and you're not breaking that bead on the back, you're going to be fine. You shouldn't have to get your tire balanced because you're just replacing the sensor. It should be the exact same weight. And another thing I need to mention is if you are putting in a brand new sensor because your old one was broken, all these sensors have IDs on them, so you're gonna have to get them programmed. You'll have to get a programmer, or you'll have to take it to a shop where they can program it for you, but they'll just have to update that ID into your computer, and then that way your car will be able to communicate with this new sensor. There you have it, our TPMS sensor is completely replaced. Now it's not too hard of a project, it does take a little bit of time, but if you have basic hand tools, you'll be able to get it done too. The smaller profile tires are definitely a little tougher than if you had like an off-roading tire with a big sidewall on it, but hey, it's definitely something you can do. Now, if you got anything out of this video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. I'll see you guys on the next one.